Howdy everyone! After a busy summer, I'm back with a quick video about how to add a weathered wood texture to an otherwise flat surface. So these are for the shields of my Conquest militia. I'm going with a desaturated color scheme with blue and yellow, and we're going to sort of use just two colors over a zenithal prime plus a little bit of bright ivory to achieve the effect of a wood grain, painted wood grain shield on an otherwise flat surface. Wet palettes are great for this because they keep the paint a little bit thin without going into a wash. It just kind of keeps the texture of the paint correct because you want this. These are all Pro-Acryl paints, and you want the paint to go over this zenithal highlight, but still let some of that black-white gradient show through. And so to start with, I'm doing the shields half blue, half yellow. That's the color scheme for the army, which is actually good for this demonstration here because it gives you a darker, more opaque color plus a brighter, lighter color in the yellow. You can see this shield has a couple lines in it that represent the planks that the shield is made out of, but it's otherwise flat and doesn't really have any texture. So all I'm doing here is adding a thin layer of blue. I haven't watered down the paint or added any mediums or anything like that. It's just the little bit of water that's added by the wet palette. And then I'm taking that ivory on my brush and just kind of with the tips of the bristles adding some ivory streaks into the still wet blue. So you're creating highlights and shadows by putting the thin layer of blue over the zenithal and then creating the wood grain by streaking the ivory into the blue while it's still damp. Now, the yellow is a thinner paint. Yellow traditionally does not have as good a coverage, but we can use that to our advantage here over this zenithal highlight. You can see that it's covering the white area of the primer pretty well. So then we're going to create the wood grain streakiness by streaking it into the black. So putting on a kind of a thin layer of yellow all over and then putting in a little bit of extra yellow in lines on top of the darker shadowed area, kind of like so. And then, just like with the blue, but only on the bottom half of the shield, grabbing a little bit of that ivory and just kind of streaking it with the tip of a pointy brush into the lighter area of the shield. And if you bring up a line or two into the darker, that looks good. So in just a few seconds, we've added a lot of visual interest to an otherwise kind of flat shield. And you could do that with heraldry or something else. But especially for a kind of a ragtag militia, I think that doing a colored wood grain is a striking effect. It's not that hard to do with a little bit of practice. And you can do this across a whole unit like you saw earlier. Grabbing a little bit of the ivory on the edges of the painted areas here. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of a bright ivory highlight to the color transition, to the area between the blue and the yellow, just to divide those a little bit more. And to the edge of the boards to make it look a little bit more like it's a rustic, primitive shield made out of little planks of wood. Like a lot of painting techniques, just kind of work at it till you're happy with it. With a little bit of practice, you can do this pretty quickly. You can go back in with the solid blue if you feel like there's too much of the lighter blue. And across a whole army with lots of these shields, just a great effect. So next, I want to show you how to quickly add wood grain to the haft of a spear or a polearm sort of weapon. And the way I do that is with a flat brush. And this is just a kind of a basic flat brush from Monument Hobbies. Any brush, the kind of a wide flat brush like this will work. You can do it with other size brushes too, but this is my favorite way to do it. You just kind of run that brush sideways. You're going to rub the side of the bristles along the length of the spear to create those sort of stripy, bright ivory lines on your primed spear. Next up, I'm going to take a little spot of Scale75 Inktense Wood, which is a nice kind of very yellow brown, and just paint that in a thin layer over the whole spear haft. And there you can see those ivory lines that we put on the spear really popping out against the darker primer coat. So across a whole army, this really looks great. It's a little faster than traditional blended highlighting and shading on a long pole like this. I find that kind of tedious to do. So I think this is easier. It looks great. Just smooth that out with a little bit of, if you get any puddles or streakiness, and you're good to go. That is a better looking spear than it was before. And that's it. Like I said, as promised, this was a quick video. Let me know what you think about a really short videos focused on a single technique. in the comments below, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you soon for another Jolly Lark.